Sonic X Episode 26. After I skip the recap, and Francine says that a baby show host is her favorite TV star, they see Eggman's plane flying, and Sonic rushes past them and they realistically scream from it. Wow, that's the best camera ever. It can keep up with Sonic to keep him on footage instead of him just being a blur that shows up for a split second. The president is told that Station Square's entire southern region is being evacuated. It's smart of him to think to say that. Then we see that Topaz gave Rouge some jewelry, and she's blushing and acting like a tsundere while Rouge is all happy about it. Are they intentionally trying to have lesbian overtones? Because this is what I would expect out of Sonic F, where they intentionally have jokes about this. And here, Topaz is actively giving her jewelry, even though Rouge is a fat girl. I'm more impressed that they're gutsy enough to have a joke like this in an official cartoon. It's more a joke like this because they're both girls. I know that's just a friend thing, but I couldn't help but think of Sonic F's endless jokes about this. They certainly have a unique dynamic. Sonic then shows up to Eggman being smug, and the robot tries to offer the emerald to Sonic, which is all the more proof that he's a terrible programmer. Then Lucky's knocked away, and the Gun Beetles show up and tell Sonic to stand aside because they're launching an attack against Eggman. They plan to open fire even though Chris is trapped inside Eggman's plane. I guess they don't know that. If Chris wasn't in there, I'd fully support these guys for doing the smart thing that any realistic military would do. Of course they'd want to fight Eggman, that's proactive of them. The plane is completely black, but then restores itself right away thanks to a golden force field that's called the Egg Shield. That was surprisingly genre savvy of Eggman. Why can't he always be like this instead of just trying to be funny and failing? Eggman tells his robot sidekicks to never mention that traitor again. But what traitor? They didn't mention a traitor, they just said they were lucky they put the shield up and the next time they may not be so lucky. Oh, he's talking about Lucky. That was a bad joke. He should know they weren't trying to mention him. Eggman fires a bunch of missiles all over the place as Sonic wastes time telling him that somebody might get hurt. I love that he took things seriously, telling him to cool it. Eggman sends more missiles, and his sidekick lampshades that he might blow up the whole planet one day, while being concerned. It turns out the enemy aircraft doesn't have a single scratch, and Eggman wonders if Lucky was giving good luck to the enemy. Why would he design a robot to do that? Good luck would be defined as good luck for him. The robot sidekick says that Sonic's a hedgehog and not a bull, being literal-minded about Eggman's expression. I love that he has that personality to him. But it's a problem that these two robots have the exact same personality. There's a reason I still haven't really memorized which one's Deco and which one's Boko. And Eggman just says he'll try to forget he said that. Some Gun Beetles go after Lucky, and somehow Eggman didn't know his own robot could fly so high. Chris yells at the bad guys, and I immediately wonder why they hadn't put duct tape on him a long time ago. Cause that's illogical. Sonic jumps stupidly high onto the airship and jumps again. This is X-Sonic after all. He goes after Lucky and catches it, and he calls himself his friend, being surprisingly sweet to him while falling down with him, and Lucky flies with him. Is he gonna get destroyed? Sonic's nicer to him than he is to his friends. What is it with Eggman and programming robots to betray him in the show? Even the game's Eggman barely had robots be like that. Eggman transforms his plane by merging a bunch of stuff into one giant mecha, which is somehow hovering without even jet boots to try to justify it. It even puts his foot on the ocean without sinking right away. Sonic flies all over the place and shows impatience, and Eggman has the 6 Chaos Emeralds' energy get transferred into the Exterminator. Wait, does this mean Sonic will go super again? Because Eggman clearly didn't learn his lesson from last time. Chris feels terrible because he blames himself for the situation, even though it was Knuckles' idea to give Eggman the emeralds. Although if Chris had just told everyone about his plan, he would have prevented this. Sonic gets sent to a wall, and Tails says that the plane can't do much without an emerald. Amy says she'll have to fight the robot, but since she's not allowed to be useful, which is why they were completely useless when they were spending a whole episode trying to catch Sonic, and in an episode called How to Catch the Hedgehog, it never happened. Since she's not allowed to be useful, she probably won't fight the robot. The mecha wipes out the Beetles, and Sonic is impressively injured as he holds his shoulder and tries to act cocky. telling Eggman that he wants to save Chris. Eggman's intimidated, and the mecha wastes power on Eggman against his will somehow and glows red hot and grabs Sonic. At least this episode is trying to be epic and tense for once, to be an action series. This is how every episode needs to be and isn't. Eggman's genre savvy as he tells the mecha to drop Sonic already, although you'd think he'd know that Sonic can handle a fall from any height. Chris screams because he's scared of Sonic dying, and as I predicted a lot earlier, he breaks out of the thing trapping him somehow and steals the emeralds. I guess because the emeralds are right next to him, and so their magic is going into him. He doesn't go super though. I think that would be embarrassing for the show. He surprisingly gets me to feel sorry for him as he talks while all bruised up, though I'm not really sure why he's bruised. And Eggman's naturally scared because everything's going wrong. Knuckles asks Eggman what he did with Chris, and it turns out Rouge saved Chris. Somehow Chris gets dropped by Rouge because she's incompetent in the show. She amusingly only cares about how he made her drop the emeralds. I love this Rouge. And I get really frustrated because for some goddamn reason they never let Rouge keep the emeralds. That was so arbitrary. She gets grabbed by the hand of the robot and then it loses its grip for some reason. Eggman says that the 7 emeralds are all mingling together at the bottom of the sea right now, and then we see that Sonic went super. So he got the emeralds before he could drown? How long was he under the water? At least this time it's justified that he destroys all the machines effortlessly because he's super. A huge spear of chaos control shows up, and tells the lampshades that there's a chance Chuck will be sent back to Mobius with them. And I love that he says he doesn't mind because it'll be his pleasure. It reminds me of how Sonic said that if Uncle Chuck got a hold of his spaceship, he'd never hear from him again because he'd be so interested in exploring other planets. That's a real scientist. But I doubt they actually would get to show us Mobius, because that would mean Sega of Japan showing us Mobius. And the show would never have the guts to actually show us that place. I'm so confused. Are they all in Mobius? Like was actually foreshadowed from the start of the show? Chris begs Sonic to take him with him to Mobius, and he hugs Sonic and begs him not to go away, saying that he's the best friend he ever had and he doesn't want him to go away. I actually felt bad for him. But again, does he not care about his human friends? Why is Sonic the best friend he ever had when he barely ever shows up and is an antisocial? He doesn't exactly try to spend lots of time with his friends. If anything, he's the worst friend he ever had. That's a creator's pet moment for Sonic. At some point I wondered if this Chris scene was all just a dream of Chris's because it feels unreal. Are all of Sonic's friends and Chuck back on Mobius? Why aren't we seeing that? I'm still waiting for the show's lame excuse to get them all sent back to Earth. After all, the only reason this anime exists is because it can have an adaptation of the adventure games more close to the source material than Sonic Underground, so they're forced to stay on Earth from meta logic. Knuckles sees Angel Island for no reason because the writing got really lazy and gave up on making him earn finding it again. It'd be okay if Sonic said to us, I sent Angel Island to Knuckles to be nice. Why is it floating so close to the ground just to justify Knuckles finding it? Did Sonic do that? And Sonic walks up to him. If he was going to bring Chris with him, why didn't he just tell him that to begin with instead of talking as if he was going to leave him and disappearing and making him upset? If he's humoring Chris, he should just tell him so right away. That's common sense. Either he went to Mobius, or because of stupid meta logic, Sonic decided to just keep himself and all his friends on Earth because he'll go to any lengths to humor Chris, which gets really ridiculous in the comic. If he was going to any lengths to humor Tails, that would have been sweet. Well, at least him wanting to humor Chris is an explanation for them staying on Earth. It's kinda heartwarming. But in retrospect, Knuckles wasn't so stupid when he believed Eggman about Sonic wanting to keep his friends on Earth, because he was kinda right. Sonic intentionally kept his friends and him from going back home. That's just what Eggman warned Knuckles about, and yet we'll never have Knuckles say that he was right. So this was a pretty great episode. Eggman uses a mecha powered by the 7 Chaos Emeralds to easily mop the floor with Sonic, and I was impressed that the show had the guts to have him visibly injured by the end. He was hobbling over to Eggman holding his shoulder and covered in bruises. It was also gutsy of the show to have that joke where Topaz got Rouge some jewelry because they're such good friends. And we just have to assume it makes sense that they became close friends because they worked together on missions so much. Off screen. I was surprised that we saw so little of them being together. They went from bitter enemies to friends the second time we saw them together. And it was also impressively gutsy that the show had Chris get visibly hurt and dazed when he breaks out the thing he sealed in himself because he's so scared for Sonic, who tried to be of Sally right away. I figure it makes sense because he's near the Chaos Emeralds, so he's using the power of the emeralds from a distance. After all, if you couldn't use the power of the emeralds from a distance, then you would have to just lie on top of all of them on the ground if you ever wanted to go super with them. I thought it was so obvious that he was using the emeralds that I was half expecting him to go super, but that would have been too silly for a franchise about a talking cartoon blue hedgehog, apparently. Even though Eggman went super a bunch of times in Fleetway, but he's the main villain of the series. The show did an impressively good job getting me to sympathize with Chris when he begs Sonic not to leave him. There's always the subtext that he's clingy because his parents barely spend any time with him, though. And that has to be the real reason he's so clingy of these guys, because he has plenty of human friends already who won't leave him for Mobius. He's got more friends than I have! What's he so lonely for? Well, that's his parents' fault. But he doesn't say that when he should. And that'd be interesting, calling him out. That has to be it, because why else would he think of Sonic as the best friend he ever had when Sonic barely spends any time with his friends? He constantly leaves them with no explanation to go run around on his own, and barely shows any communication skills with them. It's an obvious creator's pet moment for Sonic, because, oh, of course Sonic's his best friend! Because Sonic's the main character of the series, and he's the one you're supposed to think is super cool. Even though you think his best friend would be literally anyone else but him. Like Danny, who actually spent his whole childhood with them. Or Amy. Or Cream. But I guess the writer never even considered that, because they're not Sonic.